All right, special guest Dan Merchant is going to talk about what it's like being a Christian in Hollywood and why should Christians watch zombie shows. Hey everybody, and welcome to another opportunity to have a conversation about something fascinating. I'm Cyrus Rettman. I'm a grad student here at Corban and an associate pastor. This is Professor Kent Kersey, contemporary theology, and just loves to understand pop culture and Christianity. And our special guest today is Dan Merchant, who is known for Lord Save Us From Your Followers documentary and ZNation, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be here. Could I be referred to as doctor or professor during the course of this interview too? Because it sounded so good.
Out. Yes,
Professor
yes, I love
Kent
it.
Kersey. That sounded great.
The professor is in.
I love it. See, that's good stuff.
Could be Dan.
Sure. So Professor Dr. Dan.
There you go.
He gets
That'll
all
work.
of them. Yes.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things we are curious about is what's it like being a Christian in Hollywood?
You know, it's shockingly similar to being a Christian in Oregon, or Christian in Washington, or Christian in Tennessee. I give you a little bit of the business, but it's, you believe what you believe, where you go, and you try and treat people the way, for me, the way Jesus teaches you to treat people. And shock, when you treat people with love and kindness and respect and compassion, then they treat you back in a
So
very
there's not
nice
big
way.
Hollywood conspiracy they let you in on before you start
It's good.
working?
You know what? I hear people say that all the time, and I think that's good for business, is what I think about that kind of talk. I think that, I've been paid lots of money to make lots of shows. I get hired by non-Christians to work on their shows, as was the case in ZNation. The writer's room in ZNation is a great blend of skeptics and ex-Catholics and Buddhists and Christians and flat out angry atheists, it's a whole range. And the interesting thing is, empathy is important. Treating others with kindness is important. Compassion is important. Everybody seems to understand that, the golden rule transcends this theology or this dogma. Sure. And, to me, at the end of the day, if you can't demonstrate, if you can't manifest the words of Jesus, then they're kind of not worth anything.
Yeah.
And so the love and kindness and friendship I've been shown by people in, let's just say, the ZNation Writers Room, where it's a great spectrum of belief. Those are some of my best friends. Those are my favorite people to hang with. And so, that's the Christian in Hollywood thing, I think, plays into the us versus them. Now, that doesn't mean you don't go to a studio and, they're going to go, I don't know. But, I know Christians in Hollywood who greenlight movies. I know Christians in Hollywood who get movies greenlit. I know Christians in Hollywood who get movies shut down because they aren't going to be able to make money with that particular idea. I have good friends who work for companies that have released Christian movies that I absolutely detest. But I care about the people. I like these guys, these people that work there. I take great umbrage with the theology demonstrated in the movie. But hey, that movie did $100 million and Lord Save Us barely got released. So it teaches you something about the marketplace, right? And so that's what I'd say. It's like there's a Christian in Hollywood. What does that mean? Is that your business model, or is that who you are in a place? And look, I grew up in the state of Washington and in Portland. I'm used to living with people that don't think like I think, right? That's one of the blessings. I think that was sort of the special soup on Lord Save Us From Your Followers, because I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, where people moved away from organized religion. Being a non-Catholic in Boston, probably a little tricky, right? Because that's part of the cultural thing, and that's sort of the independent spirit of the West, is you get to pick and decide what you want, and you might be just as likely to, be hiking in the gorge on a Sunday, and that's your church, gee, I got to be here for this service. So the cultural mandate that you might find with the Southern Baptists in the South, or you might find in the Northeast with the Catholics or whatever, I didn't grow up with that, because the Northwest is a different kind of place. And so because of that, I feel like I was able to examine the marketplace of ideas and decide for myself that, wow, the stuff that Jesus says is beautiful, challenging, transformative, and it makes no sense. You know, in the respect that based on the capitalist kind of rules of America and American Christianity, for that matter, is that, wait, what? It's not a quid pro quo. It's not a you give and get. It's like he kind of loses. He gets, you know, and what happened to all the disciples? They didn't get kingdoms. They got, Peter crucified upside down. It's not like this is here's the winning team, guys. Here's what you do. However, when you look at the words of Christ and you try and follow them, it's like, it's amazing. It's like, wait, grace and forgiveness to someone who you think doesn't deserve it. You manage to offer that with God's strength. Something transformative and weird and beautiful happens.
Oh, man. The servant leadership concept that comes from Christ, the last will be first, these kinds of things, they're hard for us to naturally do, right? Let me serve you because I'm better than you. That's really strange.
No, and I, the red letters, if you will, in the Bible are pretty antithetical to the way we've been taught is success. This is what happiness should be. Here's how you measure what success is in America. It's not based on these things, but you want to get melted. You want to get your heart melted. You try extending grace, or you just be open to somebody sharing grace with you when you know you don't deserve it. I mean, that's the real deal. So for me personally, that's what my faith, as best I can manage it, consists of. And there's lots of choices and there's lots of brands of Christianity and all that. But to me, the bottom line is, what does Jesus say about this? What did Jesus do? What did Jesus show us about these things? And it's super challenging. I figure that if it doesn't cost you something, you're not doing it right. It's kind of my take on that. If your heart's not breaking, and if you're not willing to give up something precious to yourself, then you're probably not doing it right. So anyway, there's my Christian in Hollywood.
I love it. Well, and it seems like right now there seems to be some Christian movies or things that's starting to find a niche. Isn't there a church that has been making a few movies, and they've seemed to be catching on, like Courageous and...
Sure, that's Sherwood Baptist Church in Georgia. Nice guys. Nice guys that make those. Yeah, again...
Are they finding a niche? Is that something that...
Well, I think it's as simple as this. And they're very... I've been on panels with Alex Kendrick, who's a director of those and writer, and I think was a youth pastor or some kind of a pastor.
Must be a great guy.
He's a nice man.
If
he's a youth pastor like you, then he's an awesome guy. It's a special breed of cat to be a youth pastor. So they've done really well. I think what they do, in my humble opinion, is they preach to the choir. They found an audience that was underserved in terms of what was in the movies, and that's where a lot of this Hollywood stuff comes from. Is that the movies that do well at the box office don't necessarily reinforce, the values that the Southern Baptist Church would go, that's important to us. And so to see their values reflected back from the big screen, I think that's meaningful. The thing I really liked that Alex did with this, the Sherwood Baptist Church kind of helped them make those first few movies, is they as I understand it, hired a professional department head for each of the departments, and then everybody underneath was volunteer.
Wow.
Have you always wanted to work on sets? Have you been interested in makeup? And they gave this wonderful opportunity for people in the church to go, I think I'd be good at that. That makes me feel like me when I do this. So what a beautiful thing to offer the congregation, a way to participate in it. And it's pretty funny, too, if you look at the closing credits, to see they're facing the Giants or maybe Courageous or one of the other ones. The craft services credit roll goes on for about 5 minutes because basically, as I understand it, everybody took a turn. At the congregation, like maybe 1,000 people. I don't know how many there were, but it's like crafts. Usually it's a team, but this was everybody in the church got to deliver something. That's cool. Wow. So that was my favorite thing. I love it.
Your favorite part of the movie was the credits.
Well,
no, I love it. It's great.
The movies don't speak to me particularly, but look, it's really hard to get something made. And they figured out how to do it, and they, you could be argued that each film is from a craft point of view is better than the one before it.
Yeah.
They clearly speak to an audience. It's so you can't do anything but respect that. I mean, it's hard to make a movie, trust me. And so those guys did that. You know, that said, they're not talking to anybody that doesn't already go to their church on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And so I get very upset with the marketing aspect of some of these films, maybe not theirs specifically, but that take your atheist neighbor to this movie and they'll be converted. It's like, no, they won't.
Yeah.
No, they won't.
Yeah.
Now take them down, downtown Portland, Oregon on a Thursday night and watch The Feet of the Homeless with Bridgetown Ministries. They're likely to have to ask themselves some questions because they're going to see things they haven't seen before and see people interact with people in a tender, powerful way.
Yeah.
I would argue that's very transformative. I'm skeptical that a Sunday school pamphlet made into a movie is going to convert somebody who's not already on your team.
So that kind of brings up a question that I've been thinking about is you just, I think you put it really well. They were representing a group of people that were underserved.
Yeah.
And so their values were being reflected. Now, sometimes those values are in other shows, other movies.
Yeah.
But people aren't picking up on them. They're not paying
That's
attention.
a great point.
So that kind of leads me to this question is why should Christians watch ZNation or zombie shows?
Well, let me stop you for a quick second before I answer that question, just to the point, because people would ask me, what's the best Christian movie you saw this year? God's Not Dead, right? I mean, that'd be the thing. And I would go, oh, no. Philomena was the best Christian movie last year in 2014, I think was when I was asked it. And they're like, sorry, what? And I go, Philomena, it will break your heart open. Have you seen this movie? Do you know this movie?
I have not.
So
Write
it's
it down.
adopted,
Go see it.
right?
No. This is oh shoot! I'm gonna space on Judi Dench and Steve Coogan.
Okay, yeah,
right. And she gave up
him
a
when he
baby.
was- yeah.
Well, he's a journalist.
Yeah.
That's getting to the bottom of this crisis inside of the Catholic Church and this nunnery that ran an orphanage and all this kind of stuff.
And so ladies or pregnant single women would go and
and
taken care of.
And they'd take the baby, put the baby up for adoption, and then they were basically indentured servants during this period of time. And so Steve Coogan was like I don't know if it was a London Telegraph or Examiner or what his paper was, but he was on this. It's a true story, apparently, based on a true story. And so he's got this case that he's this thing he's on, and he's going to go with this woman to connect with the person that she gave up and all this kind of thing. And he makes fun of her for almost the whole movie for her faith. How these horrible nuns did this to you. How can you still believe? And she had what you might say at the beginning of the movie were simple answers. And then he just got more confused and more moved. And I won't blow the end of the movie, but
thank you.
It's the gospel.
Yeah.
It is the gospel. And the movie might have been an R. It might have been an R because of the language. I'm not sure. But Philomena. That was the best Christian movie. That was the best intellectual, fair conversation about why you believe and what you believe, and
it shows.
And she demonstrated. What did you think?
Shows you rather than tells you, which I think art is supposed to do. Right? It's supposed to show you something rather than say, hey, here's the 3 points. Right? And it shows deliverance. It shows passion. It shows faith, but it doesn't preach it. And I think that was what's so beautiful about this movie. Yeah. Right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it respects the audience to make up your own mind.
Yeah.
It's pretty undeniable what's demonstrated. And I found it terribly challenging, as well as being really entertaining. Steve Coogan's great. Judi Dench is amazing. So you've got some of the best talent in the world. And it's a fascinating, beautifully done piece. But to your point, it's like, absolutely. There's movies that are made every year full of grace and passion and redemption and forgiveness and things demonstrated in meaningful ways that fly under the Christian radar. And regrettably, I feel like I have the recipe for a successful Christian movie, and it's a us versus them. Your faith is under fire. You must stand up and show Hollywood. Show me a movie that didn't do that and doesn't have Greg Kinnear in it. that did those kind of numbers. That's generally, I mean, certainly with God's Not Dead, that's totally with. It's complete manipulation that they did. And that's why it was successful. And that's why their follow-up, Do You Believe, didn't do jack at the box office, because it wasn't a political cause. It wasn't a fear-based us versus them kind of dividing line, which is great for business. Like I said before, fear is good for business. You can ring the bell with that. It just is, as we just saw with a certain election that happened. You know,
so it's a challenge. I think, again, from an artist's perspective, is to be able to make people think and even be uncomfortable a little bit, right? Like, we're not going to give you the answer.
Yeah, exactly. I named a movie that's a very fair movie about kind of explaining, you know, why the gospel of love is dividing America was sort of my theme, and called it Lord, Save Us from Your Followers. Partly because that's a funny bumper sticker, partly because I liked how it looked when you know, I'd sit down at NPR or on the Today Show or whatever, or you'd see Lord Save Us from Your Followers on the marquee of an indie art house. It's like people who will not darken the door to your church wanted to be in on this conversation. You know, the folks down at you know, Gay Pride, when we set up a confession booth, we interviewed, I think, 28 people over the course of an entire day. Turned away like 60 or 70 because we couldn't get through the conversation. I mean, we're having legitimate, you know, 10, 15, 20-minute conversations with people. But I thought that was fascinating that by a factor of 2 or 3, that many more people waiting to come in and talk, because this isn't a conversation that they're allowed to be involved in, you know, or at least weren't, you know, at the time.
They're being told what to believe rather than invited into
thinking.
Well,
they get shouted at. Yeah, they get shouted at. Yeah. So from an art perspective, you're exactly right. Is you know, you try and raise some questions. You try and entertain. You know, Lord Save Us from Your Followers is funny. And, you know, people let their guard down when they find themselves laughing and going, ooh, am I supposed to be laughing at that? You know, it's not a you know, it's an involuntary reaction. It's not a conscious choice. I will now laugh now, ha ha. Right? It's like it either hits you or it doesn't.
Unless you're doing an interview.
Yeah, fair enough. That's right. Keep it together. So to your ZNation question, why should a Christian? They shouldn't. Doesn't matter. You know, it's just entertainment. It's fun. What's in there, if you peel back the onion a little bit, is we have a bloody, gory, funny zombie show that features empathy on a daily basis, if not a scene by scene basis. And that seems like a major crisis in our culture today, that we fail terribly at empathy. We don't understand the other guy. We don't even bother.
Because having mercy, that's sort of the code
that's
for,
right. That's
like,
right.
putting someone out of their misery, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that has, I mean, maybe not like here's the gospel in 4 points, but does that have a Christian sympathy behind this?
I think it has a compassion sympathy behind it. I mean, I think that's Carl Schaefer, the showrunner's line, have mercy. And so he's not...
And that's putting a zombie out of their misery.
Yeah,
right?
that's it. And so what it does is it you know, one of the reasons we think we have all sorts of conversations about, gee, why are zombie shows so popular? And my theory, and it's sort of been adopted from other conversations with the other writers and just kind of in the room talking about it, but it feels like this latest round of the zombie craze, I mean, is definitely a post 9/11 thing. It's this gives us some place to put our fear of the other. And the other thing about the zombie particularly, and I'll use this to explain The Walking Dead's gigantic. I mean, they're the #1 show on television by a long shot. You know, we do fine on our little corner of sci-fi, 9 o'clock on Fridays.
Set your TiVo.
Set your TiVo. Yeah, exactly, friends. Netflix, season 1 and 2. There we go. So Walking Dead did $18 million to start their season opener, which is bigger than the networks did, right?
Those are football numbers.
Yeah, that's right. That's live football right there. So, but what's fascinating is that if you think about what a zombie is, you have permission to kill that zombie with impunity. There's no having to consider the zombie's point of view. I get to take out every weapon I want. You know, NRA loves that show and ours. you know, it lets you off the hook, and therefore it's a fantastic fantasy.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not like the world. And frankly, zombies are probably a stand-in for ISIS. They're probably a stand-in for Al Qaeda. They're probably a stand-in for these. We don't quite understand them. We certainly don't understand whatever the poverty and the war and whatever the things that allowed, you know, a hate-filled group like that to rise up. And we're not interested in the symptoms very much, it seems. It's like, oh, we got to bomb those guys. Really? Because then you're going to bomb another wedding, and then whatever comes after
because
ISIS.
Ideology maybe is not my ideology. I don't understand it, so I'm free to.
Again, the zombies are permission-giving. You know, as Carl jokes, we're giving them the apocalypse they want. The audience wants. I want one where I can step on the porch with my gun that I got at, you know, Big Five Sports, and I can blow the head off anything on my land that I don't want to be there. Yeah. That's the fantasy that a lot of the country likes. So I think that's in there somewhere. Yeah. And so part of what we do on ZNation to kind of subvert that, as you mentioned, is, you know, when we kill a zombie, quite often it's like, I give you mercy.
Yeah.
And what that acknowledges is, despite the anguished state of this being, they were a person.
They had value.
They were a creature of God. They had value, and we're gonna put you out of this pain that you're in. Yeah. So that's subtle, but you know, you might hear it 8 or 10 or 12 times in a show, and so wait, for something that we're allowed to, no one would blame you if you didn't. They're zombies. Kill them. They're gonna get you if you don't get them.
It's your duty, right?
Yeah,
to help society.
Life.
Right, exactly. But when you work in, there's this other layer of compassion for this other creature that, for the grace of God, could have been you. Yeah. You got out the window right before they got you, you know, kind of a thing. So those are some of the things. And certainly then there's a lot of self-sacrifice. There's a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of warmth between characters in an environment where that shouldn't be a valuable trait.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's sort of a survival of the fittest taken to the max in a zombie apocalypse, right?
And that's one of the things I thought was really interesting about a lot of those post-apocalyptic zombie-esque kind of shows, where you have maybe a group, maybe a family, maybe a small group of people that have enough for themselves, and then other people come along. And I think that's one of the genius things about some of these zombie shows, is that they put people in ethical dilemmas.
Oh, for sure.
That are really subtle in the real world, but very blatant. Are you going to share with someone else? You might not have enough.
Yeah.
But you could maybe save somebody else's life. Are you going to bring them in past the barbed wire fence or whatever that protects you? Are you willing to let somebody in?
Yeah, no, and those are questions we explore all the time on the show, which is, what are we trying to survive for?
Yeah.
If we're going to walk away from these people right now, what are we trying to save? What, you know, so those exactly, what is being human mean? What has value? What doesn't have value? Those are, I mean, you know, that's what's so fun about working in a, you know, science fiction horror genre. I remember as a kid watching one of the Star Trek episodes that must have come out in 66 or 67, where the characters had half their face was white and half their face was black. Do you guys remember this episode?
Yeah.
And it was like, well, it's in reruns. Look it up. So of course it's a race issue episode in the late 60s, right in the middle of it all, right? And probably pre-assassination of King and Kennedy, but Robert Kennedy. But and they got to speak about race just as on the nose as possible, except for they're in space in the future, and it's a guy with who's half of each. You know,
they're still saying something.
So it took the heat. It takes the heat off of it. So that's the difference. To your point about art, about entertainment, is it and especially if you respect your audience and you're going, look, decide what you want about this. You can think we're full of it. That's completely fine. Did we entertain you? Did we keep you for a whole hour?
Well,
Did you tell your friends about how great that zombie splat was? You know?
See, that's one of the reasons why I think podcasts like this are so important, because Christianity has a lot that is very thoughtful, like you were saying, that is countercultural in all the right ways. But so often we don't see it, even when it's presented before us, whether it's in music or whether it's some other form of media. And often it's there, but because maybe we're not looking, or because nobody told us to look.
Or nobody told us it was okay to listen to this particular group or station. I mean, he and I bonded, relatively instantly when we met at that conference over U2.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, what?
And he gets me. He hears me.
Yeah. So we talked rock and roll for a couple hours and talking about U2 specifically. And sometimes they're, U2's been obvious, and sometimes they've been really subtle. Mm-hmm. And those are the very, some very powerful songs that they've done that are relatively subtle. And they're, recognized now partly because of Bono and the Edges and everybody's philanthropy and all that. But that's the thing. And I found that in the music of the Clash. I found that, challenging the status quo for good of all. Oh, that's socialist. There's a socialist from Nazarene you might want to read up on that's going to mess your world up a little bit.
The early church shared everything. What's up with that? Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, just the hospitality and how counterculture the first 300 years of the church was before it was the state religion, in the Roman Empire. It's like, that's pretty appealing. That's interesting to me. And I have friends here and there that try and practice that. And they're some of the weirdest people I know, but it's like, you have to go, they're probably getting that part right. As much as I wouldn't want to do that, I have to question my own heart about open your door to just anybody at any time, really? Not my thing. Maybe it should be, and perhaps quite likely I've got that wrong. And I'm sure I'm super guilty of going, well, I like to give like this. I'll do that.
That's right.
I'm good at doing this.
I'll tip or something.
I'll go sit for a podcast. That'll be my thing for that.
That'll be my service.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's that's why I say it's like what Jesus, talks about is really challenging, and it requires it requires a lot of us. And what's Paul's great line about die? You got to die to yourself. Oh, that's name an American that wakes up going, I'm going to die to myself today. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Living for someone.
That's hard.
So that's Galatians 2:20, and it changes people's lives when they really wrestle with that concept of what does that mean to live for Christ and to die for myself. And man, it's challenging each and every day. 2 Corinthians chapters 8 and 9 talk a lot about giving and how we are blessed to be a blessing. Right? And talking about really, and that's one of the things that I think people miss, is that Christianity is all about giving, really. Giving of yourself, giving of not just your money, but your time, giving of your love, your affection, your heart.
Yeah.
And it was exemplified by God himself. He gave his son, right?
Yeah. He comes down going, okay, let me try and explain this one more time. I'll come down, I'll show you how to do this.
Check this out.
Yeah, and I believe it's 2 Corinthians.
Yes,
not
that's right.
Correct
that's
you.
right. That's
Sorry.
right. According to
Reverend
Trump.
You are a professor.
Yes, that's right.
You are a professor.
That is awesome. Well, I got to some, because actually one of the episodes you did some background mythology, that guy who captures Murphy, right?
Oh, the collector,
and he gives that was a great lesson on some of the mythology there
of zombies and stuff.
I is it true? I was wondering about this. Zombies seem to be one of the only monsters that are all naturalistic, right? A vampire, there's some supernatural stuff, and it seems like, I wonder if zombies are user-friendly because they will work within a very naturalistic system. You don't need something supernatural from the outside.
Well, all you need is a virus to go wrong, which we've seen happen. The Zika virus threatens the Olympics. We're is this the one that makes the zombies? What's going to happen? I wonder. That's it's it's only one, and it's pretty easy to go, okay, with genetically modified food, what if they just get it wrong just that much and it turns us all into maybe.
There's no witchcraft or anything. It's just this is it. Because it seems like your show, there are some hints of kind of some supernatural stuff. Let
me think.
Or
I'm trying to think if there's anything that actually turned out to be.
There's dreams and there's those sorts of things.
But right? I think you're right. It's more a biological anomaly. It's more Andromeda strain.
Yeah, whereas a vampire, there is something obviously supernatural going on.
Right, that's right.
And I wonder if that's part of the attraction for Americans. It's I can be totally naturalistic and fully explain where this monster comes from. Maybe that makes it more realistic and more scary, too.
I think that's probably true, yeah. I mean, look, as a kid, and to this day, the scariest movie I ever saw was The Exorcist. And the reason was, I read about that stuff in the Bible.
Exactly.
Does that really happen like
and
that?
It can, yeah.
And so, so I think you have a point that there's a certain suspension of disbelief required, but maybe not as much as Close Encounters of the Third Kind or something.
Yeah. Do people ever point out like Bible verses and say like Bibles are in or zombies are in the Bible? Have you?
Yeah. No, I think we knew that. We did an episode written by one of the co-creators named Craig Engler called it was the Church of the Resurrection. And so that was literally, I think it was in episode 6. So it was literally a cult that sprung up post-apocalypse.
Yes, that was really interesting.
And they took some Bible stuff super literal. And, it's like, hey, we got a church full of Lazaruses. Now there's zombies in our show. But that was absolutely played around with. And
I found one in Zechariah 14. It says, their flesh will rot while they are standing on their feet. Their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths.
Now, the eyes rotting is an expensive special effect, so we usually just kind of do a visual effect there where they glaze over, but maybe that's what they're talking about.
But it's interesting because people, there was a joke that I don't remember, but it was that Jesus was the first zombie, right?
That's it.
And people, a little misunderstanding there, but
but you're right. You can take that as a version of resurrection and then take it and play with it, and that's something that we play with the notion of belief systems a lot on ZNation because these little communities come up. One of the things we've talked about kind of as in relation to this, and this is interesting with the what do they call it? The dispensational theology of the post World War II. And that the end is coming. This guy's the Antichrist. I went through all that stuff in the '80s, and there's some fun of it in Lord Save Us, where it's like, sure, guys. But we play with that in ZNation. It's like, well, where do these beliefs come from? There's this extreme situation, and therefore, based on this, this happened. So everything I knew about God was wrong up till now, unless I change my perspective on this. And if you look at our world, the apocalypse has already come for lots of people. The apocalypse came during World War II. The apocalypse came with a tsunami in Indonesia. The apocalypse. That's the part that makes me insane about certain biblical interpretation of Americans sitting back going, well, which Christian channel should I watch on my cable and satellite TV? And then talk to me about I have to do this and this because of the apocalypse.
Where people right now
it's like, guess what, guys?
That.
They already got it. And frankly, Nero was the Antichrist, I think most scholars would say, right? So
that's an opinion. It had to mean something to them. Obviously,
to them.
They had to understand some interpretation of that. That would make sense.
The book I read when I was 16 that said it was Anwar Sadat, not right. But it was a pretty freaky week while I waited for him to get up from being shot.
Yeah, Obama's like
think
the
about
next
that.
one.
That would have been.
Right? Sadat goes down with a bullet. I'm like, I literally sat up for 3 days waiting for him to get up.
In the Middle East, it all...
Oh, yeah. Wasn't he? And it's like, you're not right. Rip. Okay, done
next
with
one.
You guys.
Well, and this is why it's always dangerous to interpret our culture and the Bible through the newspaper. Well, we don't use newspapers, but a lot of people...
Twitter.
That would be dangerous. Twitter's fine, though,
They take current events, and then they try to force them into Scripture, and it doesn't work like that.
Well, and that, to me, plays into the thing that's really fascinating that gets overlooked a lot, that this whole notion of, the way I interpret it, of what we're called to do is, as in heaven, on earth as it is in heaven. So what did that mean? Why did he bother saying that? And this whole idea of, let's hurry it up and get to the apocalypse so we can go to heaven thing, kind of missing the point. We're missing the opportunity. We're missing the chance to know God. And I feel like the love one another thing kind of gets hammered pretty heavily. Maybe that's the clue about how we're supposed to get to know God is through His creation.
Well, that's the point.
And it's super hard to do, which is the other,
impossible.
to me, the other proof. That's probably the right pathway.
Because Jesus was talking about God's will being done on earth as it is in heaven. And that's His will, right? Is that we would love Him and love others. Great. Hey, awesome. Thanks so much.
Hey, my pleasure.
Where can people find out more info about what you're doing?
Let's see. So this book that came out a few years ago, Lord Save Us from Your Followers, is I think a very, well, you've seen it.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's a great, it's a documentary.
Documentary film to go with the book. That's right.
Yeah. Asking the question, because you had gone to Africa, had seen people without all the toys we have actually having joy and peace and love. And it's like, all right, we got all of it. Why don't we experience that? And that leads Dan on a journey across America, asking a lot of people some really interesting questions. And it's convicting and it is funny and it's good stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Right on, Ken. Thank you for that. I was not paid for that endorsement.
There you go.
Yes. And then ZNation is on Sci-Fi Channel. Runs through December 16th, I believe, Friday nights at 9 o'clock, and you can catch up on the show. Season 1, Season 2 on Netflix. Season 3 will be on Netflix in America in January.
Cool. That's awesome. And do you have a Twitter for people to follow?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, let's see. Twitter would be Dan Merchant, K-I-N-K, Kink. I did a year on Kink FM Morning Radio in Kink, which was awesome. That was good. Sheila did a show with Sheila Hamilton in Portland, which was a lot of fun.
You had to get up in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah, I get up like at 3:30 for that. And so when season 2 of ZNation got picked up, then it's like, okay, I can't do both these things. But yeah, so I think it's at Dan Merchant, K-I-N-K on Twitter. And then what else is there? Facebook. Yeah. Facebook, I do more Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that.
Pictures at concerts. You went to Ringo Starr, right?
I did see Ringo Starr. Ringo talked to me.
Ooh,
did I tell you that?
Wow.
I didn't. So
he talked to the whole audience.
He's saying just to me.
I was the only one wearing a Sgt. Pepper outfit. So I had one made. I wore it for a Kink promo a while ago, and then I saw McCartney from the 4th row in Seattle and got a wink and a nod and a point. That was pretty sweet.
Wow.
But Ringo goes, there's a man in the front wearing a Sgt. Pepper jacket. I see that it's John Lennon green. I guess you couldn't find the pink anywhere. Boom! So Ringo dissed me in front of the audience. So it was
that was me.
Yeah, but I did go home going, a Beatle talked to me tonight. That was pretty sweet. I was pretty psyched. So yeah, I do like my rock and roll shows. That's true.
That's good.
Of course you can find Kent Kersey all over.
Yeah. At Dead Theologians, which probably should. That's my Twitter handle.
Yeah, that's Twitter. Dead Theologians.
So it seems like it should fit in. It was supposed to be like from the Dead Poets Society, but I don't know. I think most people are like that's just really weird. But
well, most theologians are dead, or the ones that are alive should be maybe.
Dead white guys. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, that's what we read. That's what we read.
I like it.
Right. Yeah. Well, great.
Thanks,
Cyrus. Very much. Absolutely. Thanks for being here.